I'm not interested.
All right, well, my editing skills are... Let me bump that up a little bit. Crap, but can the same thing be said about Please Stand By? Stick around and find out. Oh, gotta point him this way. Oh, didn't quite have the support at the end there. Oh well. Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions here with my uncut review of Please Stand By. The synopsis on IMDb reads, a young autistic woman runs away from here... Oh, man, I gotta get my thing so I'm not bumping the camera the whole time. I got to get this out. I'm in a hurry. I gotta pick up my boys, otherwise I would have spent more time doing prep and setup for this. Alright, synopsis reads, a young autistic woman runs away from her caregiver in an attempt to submit her manuscript to a Star Trek writing competition. This is an indie drama, if that wasn't articulated enough, starring Dakota Fanning as Wendy. It kind of sways back and forth between going for touching drama and charming humor, both of which really succeeded wonderfully for me. The drama of the story doesn't hang on whether or not she will successfully submit her script to the competition or whether or not she'll win the competition, but instead it hangs on really what her life and her relationships will look like when the events of this movie are done playing out. It really hangs on during the movie, her interactions with people, and then, you know, what her life will look like as a result of the events of this movie. Wendy's older sister had been taking care of her until recently in this story when she started a family of her own and realized she can't do that and take care of Wendy at the same time. So she placed Wendy in an adult care facility, maybe a few months, it's not clear, before this movie begins, for people with special needs. And so anyway, throughout the movie, we see how Wendy interacts with various kinds of people who play various roles in her life. We've got her sister, her relationship with her doctor, her relationship with and interaction with a potential boyfriend at work that's kind of flirting with her, her relationship towards authority figures of various kinds, and both kind and sinister strangers that she meets on her trip. The drama of the movie hangs on her difficulty in relating to people and their difficulty in relating to her. This strikes me as a great movie to watch if you, as a geek, also like good drama now and then, or if you want to watch a geeky movie with someone who would prefer to watch a moving relationship drama. It's kind of a nice halfway point. You're going to get lots of Star Trek references, and even if you're not a Star Trek fan, I'm not really particularly a Star Trek fan. I used to watch all the shows, you know, and so I certainly knew the characters that were being referenced and, you know, the Klingon language being referenced and these various kinds of things, but there were some little bits of Star Trek minutia that, you know, maybe some true Star Trek fans would be able to identify and would know right along with Wendy, who's this uber Star Trek fan. But anyway, there's plenty of fan service. I don't think Star Trek is being made fun of. I think that Star Trek is probably a very beloved property for the writer of this movie, and I think that comes through. The whole cast, I thought, did a great job for my tastes. There was subtlety and subtext in their performances, great emotional access from them. I really felt totally absorbed in the characters, almost never thinking about the fact that they were actors making choices. I think maybe the one scene I thought of, oh, they're an actor making choices, was when Patton Oswalt, who's kind of plays a small role as a police officer that Wendy interacts with, and it turns out he's a Star Trek fan too. But, you know, it was played for charming comedy at that moment, so it didn't break me out of the drama. I really enjoyed that scene, those scenes as well. No stunts and visuals really to speak of in the usual sense that I do, since this is just a real world grounded drama. So, you know, there's no like explosions or people leaping off of motorcycles or lasers or anything like that. I always ask myself, though, is there anything of worthwhile moral, philosophical, spiritual significance going on in the themes or the content of this thing I'm taking in that would make it, worth possibly excuse me, man, I'm butchering this, that would potentially lead to worthwhile thought or conversation. I really should write that part down. I say that, or some version of that, every time I do a review. I should write it down and memorize it so it's nice and smooth. But you're getting the uncut review, especially if you're watching the video version here. So anyway, there is, I think, so much here in this movie to potentially talk about, to think about. I think this was an important movie for me to see that reminded me of some important truths. And I want to be so bold to suggest that this might be an important movie for you to see too. Wendy is a complicated person with challenging life circumstances. I mean, challenging beyond what I can imagine having to struggle with. But she is often not seen that way. That those challenges that she has in life are often not recognized by many that she interacts with. Those who have just brief encounters with her kind of just think she's weird, or they retaliate in defensive anger when she lashes out largely because of her autism. Likewise, it's so easy for us to mentally label someone that we briefly interact with online, on Facebook or YouTube or forums somewhere, or wherever it is that you're online at. It's so easy when we run into somebody that's bothering us in some way to just kind of assume, oh, they're just a crazy person, or they're just a jerk, or man, that person is downright evil, or whatever negative label we put on them. We I think have a tendency to just kind of assume some things about them, when the truth is probably much more complicated. Now, they may not have autism or some other diagnosable condition, but a lot of geeks have stuff they've been handed in life that has kind of broken them a bit, and just made it very difficult for them to function in healthy relationship toward other people. As a result, they may be hard to interact with, either because they're awkward or maybe because they're abrasive and hostile. Those in this movie who knew a little about Wendy and her situation tended to be more patient and understanding with her than those who just briefly encountered her. And so because they had some understanding of where she was coming from, that resulted in them being able to give her more patience, and then bringing calm to their interactions with her, rather than adding to the tension that Wendy was already generating herself. They tended to understand that when she lashed out or seemed cold, it was a result of some weakness in her that she has little immediate control over. For example, when Wendy became agitated, her doctor didn't yell back at her. When she pulled away from a kind old woman who kind of reached out to touch her, that old woman had a grandson, she said just moments later, that was kind of like her. So we can assume her grandson, and especially when she talks about him further, we can assume that, oh, okay, her grandson must be autistic. And so she can kind of recognize Wendy's condition. And so she brought patience and understanding to her interaction with Wendy. Both of these characters brought calm. They brought reason to their situations with Wendy, rather than giving weight to her attitudes toward them. This principle has been vital for me to learn and to continue growing in as I do online ministry. I interact with all kinds of geeks. I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and so I interact with all kinds of geeks, and including a number of those who come across as abrasive without realizing it. And as time has passed, I've gotten a little better at recognizing that those are often symptoms of something much larger, deeper, and sadder going on with their lives than whatever it is they're being abrasive about in that moment. And that realization takes some of the power out of their words for me that might otherwise make me feel hurt or defensive. Now, I still really struggle with giving way too much weight to the words of critical and abrasive people, but things like this movie help remind me of some truths that help me navigate those ugly waters a little bit better. Now, on the flip side of things, having a crappy life handed to us is no excuse for being hostile and abrasive. An important moment in this movie is when Wendy realizes she has been a burden to others. This kind of dawns on her. Her fixation on her own interests, Star Trek or writing or this script competition or whatever else in the moment she just really feels like she needs to do and have. All those fixations of hers have blinded her to how often people are bending over backwards to help her or walking on eggshells around her. There's a turning point where she realizes the need to express gratitude and return affection and respect to these other people in her life. I think as geeks, we need to ask ourselves, and maybe ask others who know us, who would be willing to tell us, am I awkward for people to talk with? Or do I come across as a little too intense at times? Is it possible that I'm a burden or abrasive sometimes, and no one feels like they can tell me that for fear of my defensive reaction? Anyway, like I said, lots of great stuff that can hopefully move us to compassion for those who irritate us, and can bring us to self-examination and gratitude as we consider what other people experience while interacting with us. All right, well, I have no idea what your tastes in movies are, but if I were a time traveler, I would go back in time and say, Peter, dude, rent this to watch with Holly sometime. For those who are curious, by the way, it's in theaters somewhere, not in my area, but you can rent this for $7 on Amazon as well. But I would say to myself, Peter, rent this, watch it with your wife Holly sometime. It'll scratch her itch for a personal drama, and it'll scratch both of your itches for a moving drama and nerdy pop culture references, especially Star Trek references. That's really the focus in this one. Anyway, it's rated PG-13 for brief, strong language. All right, those are my thoughts. I would love to get yours in the comments below, and then, of course, I hope you'll join us over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Hey, just a reminder that this humble little YouTube channel is so dependent on people just like you. There are 3 main ways you can support this channel, and they're all over at spiritblade.com. The first is to purchase one of our sci-fi or fantasy audio dramas. Second is to give us a donation of any amount. And third, you can become a Spirit Blade insider and get access to exclusive, behind-the-scenes monthly goodies. You can get more information on our About page over at spiritblade.com. Thanks so much.